Okay,
Sure.
terrific. Well, today we are here with our village planner, director of planning. Was that what we call your official title, director of planning?
Yes, director of
Okay,
planning.
with Jaime Martinez. Jaime has been with us since the week that the world shut down. And one of his roles is to work very closely with our land use boards. And so we're going to start off today by having a little conversation about the planning board, which is a board that has some really important roles to play in interpreting and understanding and actually implementing village code, with dealing with a lot of projects that happen here in the village of Ossining. And it's also one of the appointments that is a 5-year commitment. So it's a pretty serious commitment. We've been very fortunate to have a lot of engaged people serve in that over the years. And so Jaime, why don't we start by with a sort of a general question of what is the role of the planning board, and which also serves as our architectural review board?
So the planning board essentially is in charge of making sure that any new development that comes into the village is done according to codes, done in a manner that is going to be beneficial to the village at its essence, right? So there are a lot of different, obviously building codes that go into how buildings are constructed, and there are zoning codes that go into how new developments are laid out, how new everything down to a house to a shed, all the way up to large multifamily buildings in terms of how they're laid out, where they sit in the distance. But the planning board is the one that really gets into the nuts and bolts of any specific project and makes sure that they have the right kind of landscaping in front of them, that make sure that they're set back, that does an environmental review to make sure that if there are any environmental concerns, and they're the board that goes through this process, which is itself a public process. So they make sure that the community has the opportunity to engage in that process, gets access and is presented to all the different facts, and allows the community an opportunity to come in and really convey their concerns, right? So a lot of times, projects are not universally agreed as they're a good thing, right? There are people who come in and present ideas that may not be good for the village. And it's really the responsibility of the planning board to make sure that the community's concerns are heard on those projects, and to really ensure that any new development that comes into the village is in conformance with the code and is in the best interest of the village. And that's at its heart, that's what the planning board does, and they do that through a review of their applications, through environmental review, and of course with the Board of Architectural Review, ensuring that the building itself, any structure that's built, looks good and is not going to be an eyesore. Which, if you've seen any other municipalities, I'm sure you can go and say, oh gosh, how did they let that go up? And that's the responsibility that lies with the planning board and the Board of Architectural Review. Make sure that what is coming up is nice looking and is going to contribute to the overall value of the village.
Well, I think you may have touched on our next question a little bit already, but I'll let you expand on it, which is how has the Planning Board and Board of Architectural Review impacted the community?
I mean, the nice thing about the planning board is they really do kind of function as this review board, and so they have to interpret the laws that are in front of them, right? So there's a comprehensive plan that feeds into the overall zoning, and the sort of the intentions of the village as they move forward. And so the planning board is more than any board, I think, outside of the board of trustees, the board that has the responsibility to enact the plans that are out there. So they connect to the community by having public hearings. And it's really kind of a place. I would imagine that more than any other board, except for the Board of Trustees, is probably the place where individuals from the community come out and engage in the process of seeing what their home is going to look like, what their neighborhood is going to look like. So that public process is every session every month.
And I mentioned before that it is a 5-year commitment, although occasionally somebody has to leave in the middle of the term. And I think actually the vacancy we're going to have in the new year, at least one that I'm aware of, I don't know if there's more than that, is somebody who's maybe leaving in the middle of a term to go on to another position that doesn't allow him to continue to serve. So actually planning board seats don't come up that often. We've term limited out some folks over the years because there's a maximum of 2 terms that you can serve on the planning board, or 10 years. It's not that often that we have planning board appointments, but there are some skills that might be especially beneficial, perhaps. Who in Ossining would be a good candidate to apply for the planning board?
I think that anybody, there is a wide range of skills. I think that the first skill that you need is intellectual curiosity. You really need to kind of be willing to take a look at projects and consider them and thoughtfully review them. That is something that is not something you learn in school. I think it's something that you really have to kind of endeavor towards through life to make sure that you have that sort of level of intellectual curiosity. Beyond that, having people who are familiar with development, people who are familiar with architecture, people who are familiar with landscaping, environmental features. These are all aspects that are very useful. And I think that also having an understanding of businesses is very helpful. You do have a lot of people who come in with conditional use applications and they're looking to open up restaurants, right? And so those are the types of applications come forward. So having an understanding of the needs and concerns of that group of individuals is very helpful. But also, individuals who have community engagement experience, right? Who have represented large communities, who know how to ask thoughtful questions that the community is concerned about, are other areas which are very helpful. So there, I would say that there's a lot of different roles that you can play, but the highest among us is that intellectual curiosity.
I like the way you've summed that up. Thank you very much, Jaime, for talking to us today about the planning board. I hope we get some really terrific applicants. It's an incredibly important board, as you've described today, that's going to have a lot of influence on exactly what things look like when they get built in our community, and that they are very thoughtfully considered in part of that land use process and the approval process. So thanks very much.